All right, we've been listening in. I'm Kate Bolduan. We've been listening in to the Pentagon, an update from there on the situation on the ground in Afghanistan. With me right now, as we learned quite a bit, CNN military analyst, retired Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, and Paul Rieckhoff, the founder of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. Thank you both for being here. General, what we heard from the general as well as John Kirby, what sticks out to you from the update today?
Well, truthfully, Kate, it's what I've been saying since last Monday, that all NEOs look and are extremely chaotic from the very beginning due to a variety of factors. Everyone is in a desperate rush to get out of Afghanistan, and that includes those who are not authorized to leave. The adjustments made to this mission, to this NEO, non-combatant evacuation operation, in my view, having had to plan and almost conduct a NEO in another country once before, have been magnificent. The atmospherics and the messaging early on were not good. It has changed over the last couple days. Remember, we've only been doing this now for 7 weeks. And in listening to John Kirby explain some of the things going on, you have to almost have a military mind to understand the nuance of what is happening. And a lot more is going on behind the scenes than anyone could probably guess. We're focused on this approach because it's a fluid situation with a very dynamic set of circumstances, a government that has fallen, a military that's not supportive, and a requirement to get a whole lot of forces in. And those are the kinds of assumptions that have to be confirmed or denied in either a permissive or a contested environment during a non-combatant evacuation operation. So I personally think things are, in my view, they are certainly improving significantly. The numbers are increasing rapidly, and the mission is now sort of settled a little bit, where a lot more processes and coordination is occurring in a much better rate.
Paul, they said just under 11,000 were evacuated by the U.S. military yesterday. That's a big increase from the 24-hour periods that we've been seeing in the days prior. But one thing that we heard from the podium was that several thousand Americans have been evacuated. But when pressed on if they were being intentionally vague or just still don't know and to offer some explanation, John Kirby wouldn't go there. Why do you think they cannot be more specific or won't be more specific, Paul? What's your reaction to that?
Well, I think the big takeaway is this is still a giant mess. There are some times when they're going to have to withhold details for operational security. There are other times when they clearly don't know. And I think the challenge for our friend John Kirby, who used to be here on CNN, is that you can fact check him in real time. When he puts something out, you can look at reporters on the ground in Afghanistan. You can hear from Afghans who are at the gate. And this is still a real catastrophe. They may be trying to stabilize this patient, but the patient is still bleeding. They can get people out, and they are getting people out at a much higher number, and that's good. But this is still far from a good news story. If you look at the overall number of Afghan allies we have to evacuate, even with this number, maybe they've gotten to 10%. That means we've got 90% or more to go, and who knows what's happening outside of Kabul. So they're trying to get their hands around this. And I think you're starting to see a bit of a different message from the Pentagon than you are from the White House, because the Pentagon is dealing with the military and strategic challenge. The White House is now dealing with a political catastrophe that they may think is going to go away, but is not going to go away. And I'm glad to see you and many others in the media are still focused on this, because at the end of the day, we've got friends outside those gates that are dying. They're being hunted by the Taliban, and there's a mission going on back here at home led by American veterans and others to save our allies, because quite frankly, our government hasn't done it. Thousands of Americans across this country are organizing to get our friends out because our government failed to do it.
And General, the Taliban, we have heard that the goal is to get everyone out by August 31st. We heard the president suggest yesterday that they can make plans for extending beyond that deadline if need be. The Taliban this morning saying no, all U.S. forces must be out of Afghanistan by the 31st. I'm just curious, kind of your thoughts on if push comes to shove and they're up against this deadline, what the United States does.
I think what you'll see, and that's why Press Secretary Kirby refused to answer the question, is there is continuing negotiation with the Taliban. And the Taliban is not going to stand, in my view, is not going to stand in the way of an extension of the mission. It's just not to their advantage to do that. So what I think you'll see, first of all, and I disagree with Paul on some of the things he just said, part of the reason that John did not want to give the number of Americans is because, again, having done a NEO operations, you never know. There are embassy officials, there are expats, there are private citizens, there are people on vacation, there are married folks that, Americans married to Afghans that are visiting the country. It's just hard to put a number on it. And what we've seen in the first 7 days of this evacuation is there were literally tens of thousands of Afghans storming the airport who had no ability to get out because they weren't authorized to get out. These were not SIV recipients or the special evacuees. These were just people that wanted to get the hell out of Afghanistan. But going back to your question about the 31st of August, I think we will see, this is my prediction, we will see a continued coordination with the Taliban to extend that deadline. But we're also going to see a whole lot more people evacuated in the next 8 days before the 31st.
And look, I 100% understand confusion and hesitancy to talk about maybe how many Americans they believe are still on the ground in Afghanistan. I think what you're seeing from the reporters in the room in the briefing is that they are surprised that they don't have a more specific number on the number of Americans who have been evacuated out of Afghanistan. When they do have numbers like 10,400 people were evacuated, they are specific sometimes and not in other times. But again, I'm not on the ground. Paul, one additional problem on the ground is now this renewed threat from ISIS. We've heard this from the White House. We've heard this from other places that now ISIS-K is now threatening to basically commit attacks against Americans outside and around the airport. The president's national security advisor spoke directly to that threat just yesterday on CNN. Let me play this for you.
The threat is real. It is acute. It is persistent. And it is something that we are focused on with every tool in our arsenal.
So in the midst of trying to do what is needed and get people out safely, now you have this. I mean, how does this complicate and change the dynamic, really, on the ground of how quickly you can move people and what you need to do to protect U.S. troops and Americans, as well as our Afghan allies?
Tremendously. And unfortunately, this is another predictable outcome given our hasty withdrawal. And it's important to remind people, this is not about whether or not we should have gotten out. This is how we're getting out. And it didn't have to be this way. And let me just break it down this way. You see the images on your screen of thousands of people jammed up against a wall. They are the ultimate soft target for ISIS. And that's what our troops right now have to contend with. That's what our NATO allies have to contend with. And that's just in Kabul. We don't see what's happening in the outer provinces and all across this country. This is so far from over. And I think that's part of what me and other veterans are trying to appeal to the president to level with the American people about. I don't know how the heck they're going to get out of there by August 31st. And if they do, what's going to happen afterward? We need our president to level with us about the reality on the ground and to continue to present options for what's next and to level with the American people about the risk that our men and women are facing every day that you can see on CNN. There's no spinning that. There's no sugarcoating it. And they've got to get less defensive and start being proactive.
Thank you, both of you, for coming on. We heard there will be another briefing from the Pentagon. It continues. We will continue to follow it. Thank you both. Really appreciate it.